All right, cool. I'm Ahmad. I am the co-founder CEO here at Syndica. We provide Web3 developer tools and infrastructure for the Solana ecosystem. So I'm here to talk a little bit about Syndica and what we do for the Solana ecosystem and how you guys can use it. So what we're really building is the cloud of Web3. We started off initially with just RPC infrastructure, but really quickly started to go into other areas of the development stack. We're backed by some of the best venture capital out there, which provide us immense amount of resources and network to continue to build in this ecosystem. Today, we're used by some of the biggest projects in the Solana ecosystem, whether that's 0-1 Exchange. We have play-to-earn games like Star Atlas, Stepin, Mango Markets, Bridge Split, and so much more. So this is going to go a little bit into how we kind of got here. When we first started Syndica, we knew that the RPC layer was really, really difficult in the Solana ecosystem. So we started first with best-in-class hardware. We knew that in order for our infrastructure to scale the way we want to, the only way we could do that was really to have the best hardware out there. So we kind of sourced the different chips in the Solana ecosystem through the server program, as well as through our own vendors. We benchmarked all the different chips out there, and we kind of came to a conclusion of what chips are best for RPC nodes. Then we geolocated all these nodes strategically across the globe to make sure that all the customers of ours can easily access Solana RPC no matter what location they're in. And then we kind of built out a really interesting architecture called Elastic Node. And the idea really behind Elastic Node is that you're provided a single endpoint. With that single endpoint, you can easily scale your dApp infinitely. You don't have to worry about 1 node or 10 nodes or 5 nodes. It's really you just have that single endpoint, and you know that your dApp will work and kind of scale infinitely. Aside from that, we've done some really cool stuff around intelligent caching. I think one of the hardest things to do in any kind of blockchain is to cache data properly, because the nature of blockchain is such that you need some of the most readily available data in order to make sure your transactions succeed. We had to do a lot of work to understand, what data can we actually cache, which ones can we not cache, and kind of build out an API gateway that is intelligent enough to be able to decipher those different things. And then one of the biggest pain points in the Solana ecosystem, especially when I first came into it, was the WebSockets. The WebSocket support was pretty poor. We did some really cool stuff around WebSocket multiplexing. The idea is that you connect with our Syndica infrastructure, and then we multiplex your WebSocket connection to many nodes. And so that way you have high availability WebSockets. So yeah, all this kind of really was done by a bespoke API gateway. So we kind of had to build that from the ground up. Most other providers in the space will use kind of the traditional load balancers like HA Proxy, Nginx, which I think is really good for RESTful kind of applications. But anything that's using JSON RPC, you kind of need a really specific type of API gateway to handle those loads. And so we guarantee 99.9% uptime with our Elastic Node architecture. We have a very fault-tolerant network. This kind of describes how dApps make RPC calls to our infrastructure. They call our API gateway. The API gateway essentially takes the data from the JSON RPC payload. It populates the analytics, so you can use that downstream for your own intelligence. And then it load balances that request to many RPC nodes out there. And our customers love us. So these are some of the messages that our customers have sent us, letting us know how happy they are with Syndica and using Syndica thus far. So we have had 99.99% uptime since launch. So our infra's uptime is best in class. To give you an understanding, that's roughly less than, I think, an hour and some minutes of downtime. So we've done, I think, a phenomenal job of making sure the RPC infrastructure is always up to date and ready to go. And we have 99.999% RPC call success rate. And so our dApps rarely ever occur any kind of issues with the RPC calls themselves. And so this is kind of a screenshot of our platform. So we offer true observability. What that really means is you get to dissect your RPC calls and gather intelligence in a way that you really can't if you were to lose that data. And so when your customers make requests to our RPC infrastructure, we capture that data and we're able to then generate these really great analytics that you can use. One, you can understand what geographies are using your dApp. You can understand what are the top cities. If you're trying to do in-person events, if you're an NFT project that wants to understand where your users are, this is really, really helpful. You can understand what percentage is desktop versus mobile. And I think this stuff is super powerful, especially when you're just trying to build a project from the ground up. There's a term called guerrilla marketing, and in order to do guerrilla marketing, you really have to know where your customers are. And so the way we kind of structured our whole app and our infrastructure is this concept of stacks. So stacks essentially allow you to house multiple dApps, multiple services, your front end, your back end, however you need to structure your application within a stack. And it's kind of like synonymous with like app stack, right? You have a stack for your application. We kind of took that and put that into our own infrastructure. And so under a stack, you have many different resources. You have elastic nodes, you have your dedicated nodes. You can spin up a dedicated node within Syndica really easily. You have the ability to have different access tokens and logs and analytics, which I'll go into next. So within logs, I think this is one of the most powerful features at Syndica. A lot of dApps initially when they launched in the Solana ecosystem were operating in the blind. They weren't even sure if they were down. And so a lot of dApps will come to us and say to us like, hey, we love best-in-class RPC infrastructure, but we'd love to have some visibility as to what's actually happening behind the scenes. Are these RPC calls failing? If they're failing, why are they failing? Can I inspect the request body? Can I dissect down and understand what's going on at the app layer? You can obviously get on-chain data to tell you why the transactions are failing on-chain, but in order to understand from the dApp to the actual RPC node, you need to have some kind of observability, and we power that through our application. You also have really great filtering mechanisms. So you can filter by IP addresses, request origin, countries, RPC ID, by methods, whatever way you want to kind of dissect your data. It's really, really easy to do that. And we also have access tokens. So we know that many teams have many developers working on many projects simultaneously. So sometimes you may have a backend service that needs access to certain RPC methods and another service that needs access to other RPC methods. You don't want to be overcharged or overbilled. You want to kind of limit access. You want to segment the access to your Elastic node infrastructure. And you can do that really easily with access tokens, and we provide that kind of out of the box. We also have that concept of expiring access tokens, so you know that your access tokens are never leaking, and people are not kind of hijacking your access token, using it, and you're incurring a bill essentially for that. And I think this is probably one of the most powerful pieces of Syndica, which is the analytics. I think being able to see really easily what RPC methods are working, which ones are slowing down your applications, which one are performing well, to kind of fine-tune the user experience. I think this really helps a lot to be able to see that data really, really easily and to be able to gather intelligence in a way that you really couldn't if you didn't have analytics platform like this. So to kind of sum it up, I think Syndica really provides you with a great RPC infrastructure, but on top of that, provides you with really great logs and analytics, which is the only way you can iterate on your product and make it better. If you can't measure it, you cannot improve it. So that's kind of what we enable through our platform. And then we built really cool APIs. One of these APIs is called the Chainstream API. Today, we are essentially wrapping the Solana Validator Geyser plugin and exposing it through a WebSocket connection. And so what you can do is you can stream block, transaction, and slot updates in real time from the validator into your own environment. And there's a couple of reasons why this is super important. One is at the validator RPC level, you can gather a confirmed commitment level transaction from it, but you cannot get a process level commitment transaction. Process basically means that this transaction has been processed by the validator, but is yet to be confirmed by the cluster. And this is important for a couple of reasons. One, if you're trying to front run, or if you're trying to snipe an NFT, if you're trying to execute a transaction that needs to be prioritized, or you're trying to get the best execution speed or success rate on your actual orders, this is really important for you. You can get that information as quickly as possible, get your transaction ready to execute. The second that transaction is confirmed, then you can execute your transaction. So I think it's a really, really interesting API. We actually had Soul Sniper, who's one of our customers, tell us that their limit order success rate has improved by 3x, which I think is pretty phenomenal. And so, I want to leave some time to talk about another aspect of Web3 development and tools and infrastructure. And so before I go into that, I want you guys to kind of use this opportunity right now. You can scan this QR code. You can use the promo code Breakpoint22, and you essentially get $250 in credits with Syndica. And so you can start testing us today. Let us know if things are going good, if they're not going good. And then, just give us a spin and let us know how it goes. And I want to leave this up here while I talk about a couple other things. I think, we have been in the Solana ecosystem now since April of 2021. I officially didn't launch the company until September, but in April of 2021, the Solana ecosystem was very different than what it is today. And it's expanded, it's grown for the better. And so many dApps are now entering the Solana ecosystem, coming from other blockchains, and we obviously see there's a clear winner in terms of high performance blockchains, in terms of adoption so far, and Solana is it. I think as a Web3 developer, you have to provide the best user experience you can. Otherwise, people will kind of go to the next competing product. And that's really obvious when you first think about it at first glance. You're like, oh, well, obviously, if I don't provide the best user experience, they're going to go to another product. But I think it's more important in Web3 because everybody has access to the protocol. Nothing is gated. Anybody can take that protocol and build a user experience on top of it that may be better than the actual team that built the protocol. And that's the point of Web3. The point is to iterate. The point is to provide the protocol to any developer out there. Let them create whatever user experience they see best fit for the users. And let the users decide what actual user experience works out best for them. And so a lot of times, we see that in Web 2, everything is really gated. The only way that you can interact with a Web 2 protocol is through an API, and those APIs are throttled, they're rate limited, there's some kind of permissions that the company has to give you. Again, in Web 3, all that doesn't exist. I think what's really going to matter at the end of the day is your ability as a developer to provide that amazing user experience, and then aside from that, your ability to market that user experience. And so in order for you to market and build that great user experience, one, you need to have some kind of observability. You need to be able to know what is working in your dApp and what isn't. Where are my users coming from? How can I cater to them? And all this data is kind of lost at the RPC layer, and we make that really readily available through Syndica. The other piece of it, I think, is really important from a marketing perspective, is you need to be able to measure your success. If you push out a feature, how many more transactions are your users sending? Not just the ones that are succeeding, but just sending in the first place to the actual cluster. And you can't really measure that unless you have some kind of analytics at the RPC layer. And so I think Syndica is really powerful in that regard. It kind of provides you that, and it gives users that visibility into the dApp, which really doesn't exist. And so, yeah, I'll end it off there. I think I wanted to dive into that a little bit. I know we have a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer it. But yeah, there's 2 mics right here if you guys want to come up and ask any questions. Don't be shy.
Hi, I have a question. From your experience, what's like the simplest thing that a dApp can do to kind of improve those RPC requests that you would recommend everybody just do at the start?
I'm going to come down to hear that. Sorry.
It's like the easiest thing that a dApp can do to optimize the RPC request would be like the most common mistake that developers make.
What is the most common mistake?
In terms of like optimizing RPC calls.
Got it. Yeah, so the question was, what is the most common mistake that developers do to optimize RPC calls? I think there's, I don't know if you guys know about the get program account call, and so that essentially is really, really heavy on the RPC node. When you make that call, it's basically getting all the program accounts under that one specific program. And so using something like program-derived accounts is a much better approach to fetch the specific accounts that you need. I think those are some of the ways that you can improve it. Also, I think there's a lot of improvement in the WebSocket space. So right now, you are connecting to a WebSocket connection, subscribing to one account, and that account may not be updated for a very long period. So instead of using up that one WebSocket connection, you can just kind of set up a polling mechanism and actually fetch the data every X amount of seconds or X amount of interval. And so I think things like that will help a lot. And the way you can do that, again, is you need to have some kind of observability. And I'm not just saying this because I want to sell Syndica to you guys, but I'm saying it because you can set that up today, right? If you know how to set up Grafana, if you know how to set up a time series database, you can put that data and capture it and then gather some kind of insights. And I think it's super important. So yeah, that was a great question. Thank you.
Hey, yeah. Since I was looking also, and I was attending the one other presentation that was kind of related to the Google capabilities and their offering to the Solana itself. How do you differentiate, for example, their BigQuery offering to your monitoring challenges?
Yeah, so the question is, how do we kind of compare to Google's Bigtable instance, essentially, right? The BigQuery, yeah. So I think it's really interesting what Google is doing in the Solana ecosystem. I'm really happy that they've joined, right? It validates us in what we do because we have a big cloud provider like Google coming into the space and saying, hey, yeah, we believe in Solana and we know it's going to succeed long term. In terms of BigQuery, I think we're going to have to wait and see what they come out with. Today, we have the whole Solana blockchain history inside Bigtable, which I think is a super, super important piece to make sure that we have that data accessible. At Syndica, we're working on probably the world's fastest indexer, and we're going to be releasing that here in the next month, and you'll be able to try that out and tell us how you feel about that. When Google comes out with their BigQuery index version of the Solana history, we'll definitely be trying it out. But I think there needs to be more than just one solution. It shouldn't just be Syndica providing an indexer or Google providing an indexer. There should be many, many RPC providers, many, many infrastructure providers in the Solana ecosystem that provide that to you, because that's the point of decentralization. We kind of need that layer, otherwise it's centralized again and it's not really helpful for anybody. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I'm really excited about what Google's doing and how they're going to enter the space. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, since I'm more into infrastructure development thingy and public clouds, knowing also the fact that there hasn't been any big announcement from other public cloud players like Amazon and Azure, Microsoft, what do you think, what are your, feeling about them? In the moment when they would, for example, have something also to offer, would you find that better or worse? Because it is kind of big, enterprise going into something that, in the end of the day, might be more centralized for their own favor. You never know.
Yeah, it's a good question. So do I believe that other cloud providers like Azure, GCP, AWS, getting into the space is good or bad for the ecosystem? Plain and simple, I think the more players there are in the Solana ecosystem, the better. I think everybody that can provide some kind of infrastructure is really helping the Solana ecosystem. We all know the pains of the developer ecosystem right now in Solana. There's a lot of improvements. There's a lot of ways we can optimize development, and I think cloud providers like AWS, GCP, Azure getting in is going to be super powerful. I'm super excited. So yeah, 100%. I think it's a great thing. But it looks like we're right out of time. I appreciate you guys listening in. Thank you for staying until the last talk. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thanks.